For me, walk for the Lord, but thank you. But I'm really glad to be back to see you guys again. Has it been a whole year, Charlene? Okay, somebody said a year ago, and I'm like, really? Really? My life has gone by that fast?
It's been a year, so it's been.
It has been a year. Oh, good Lord.
Seems like last week.
I know. But it's been a busy year. It's been a fruitful year. I can tell you that, and we're going to cover some of that tonight. Let me just do a little business up front so that we don't have to worry about this later. Of course, the fossils that we brought are real, mostly Triceratops. The one recreation that is not real, but it is a perfect recreation of a bone called a condyle. And this is the bone that sits at the base of, well, it's actually, it's a horizontal column, right, on the Triceratops. So it's in between the skull and the vertebral column, and it allows the Triceratops to sort of gimbal on this. Tons of soft cells we found in this. So most of this is Triceratops, and I do want you to come up, if you haven't already, afterwards and handle the vertebra and the juvenile frill, which is thinner than the adult frill, which is thicker, and a small piece of horn. There is a large section of the almost base of the horn down here. I don't want you to pick that one up because I had to glue that one back together. Incidentally, that's a very important part of the discovery of the soft tissues in what we found. Because everybody else, and I'll tell you a little bit of the history of this, everybody else going out looking for soft tissue went after long bones. They went after femurs. Why? They're massive and they're encapsulated. And so their thinking was the best chance of finding soft tissue would be in a massively hard bone that was highly encapsulated and not broken or fractured in any way. And so the first 5 or so discoveries that were made around the world were in long bones. Well, we found this 48-inch long Triceratops horn, which was fractured and full of roots, plant roots that were traveling through it. In fact, when we first found it, and you jacket it with plaster of Paris till it hardens to stabilize it. When we rolled it over, it fell into so many pieces. I thought, oh, good Lord. We dug for 8 hours to get this thing out of the ground. Yes.
Where did you find it?
In Montana. We went to Glendive, Montana, which is in the Hell Creek Formation. Now, Hell Creek is a very large formation and encompasses many states, and it goes on up even into Canada. And in other states, for example, in Wyoming, it's called the Lance Formation. And so Nanotyrannus lancensis, which you're going to hear about tonight, that's the mean dinosaur that we're going to talk about, was found first and foremost up in Wyoming, but we found it in Montana. And so we have some of that tonight. We have a Nanotyrannus metatarsal, part of the toe. Remember, these are 3-toed dinosaurs, and this is one of the bones just before the claw. Well, 2 bones up from the claw. And I've got pictures of this. You'll see I've got pictures of the cells that I recovered from here. And so only I'm allowed to handle that one. Nanotyrannus hip bone, which you can see was highly fractured. But when we pulled this out of the ground, it was in one piece, and so I had to glue it back together. Well, I did not test this for soft tissue. It undoubtedly is in there, but I wanted this as a showpiece because it looks pretty cool. And people like cool bones. And then a vertebra. We collected 2 of these, and you'll see, in fact, if you haven't already been to my YouTube channel, you need to go, and I'll tell you about that. But I actually have a time-lapse video of we found 2 of these, and the second one I dissolved in a matter, I mean, you can see it in seconds on the screen. this weak acid, it's like vinegar, and I'll talk about that we dissolve these in. But that one got me a lot of comments, negative actually. So I do want you to come up and look at the bones. We have some free stuff for you too. Incidentally, our book, Old Stretchy, the Dinosaur Bone Cell, and Deb did all the art in here. Isn't it just absolutely adorable? She did all the art. That's me, by the way. I'm the professor. And so this is now free, not the printed version, but the PDF. If you give me your email address, I will email you. We're trying to get to the point where even the printed ones we can just give away. Give away, give away. That's our goal, is to give everything away. Now, we have a new book coming out, which I'll tell you about also. But this print version, sadly, we still have to sell those to pay for them. But I have a book called Debunking Evolution, edited by Dan Biddle, PhD, great guy, and many scientists contributed to this. And then there's a student version. So if you have a student that you know of that is struggling with the creation evolution controversy, take one. And I've got more in the car, so if we run out of the ones we have here, but you can't just take this home and use it, you know, to stabilize something in your home. Okay? This is for giving away, guys. This is for giving away to someone who needs to have their questions answered. Okay? Promise me you'll do that. So these are free. I do have a DVD of the Firefly. I don't know, have I ever done the Firefly talk here? The Firefly?
Long time ago, but
Long time ago.
I don't
So,
think any of these people heard it.
so this was videotaped by the AZOSA, the Arizona Origin Science Association. Great group, by the way. If you ever go to Arizona, check them out. They have wonderful meetings monthly. And they meet all over the state. So they videotaped my talk on the Firefly, and the amazing microscopy of that. And so therein, I think, ends, we do have a DVD also called The Old Stretchy, the Dinosaur Bone Cell DVD. I'll give these to Deb and you can put those back. So, yeah, thank you for letting me come tonight. We are going to talk about this mean dinosaur and his soft side, Nanotyrannus lancensis. But before I do, I thought I would do a refresher because a lot of folks may not know what we discovered and the significance of what we discovered. Okay, we went on several days to Montana. The first one was because as a microscopist, and that's a scientist who uses microscopes, I've been reading the literature on soft tissue and dinosaur bones for 15, 20 years. And it always enthralled me. And I would read the parts of the technical papers that are called materials and methods. And this is where the researcher points out, we use this equipment and this reagent and this oven and this spectrometer or whatever. They tell you exactly the methods that they used and the materials that they used to get the research that they did. And I was reading this and I was thinking, I can do this. Why? I'm a trained microscopist and I see all the microscopy that they're doing. I can do this. And so I was really excited. So finally got a group of like-minded people to agree with me that we needed to do this project. So off we went to Montana. We looked and looked and looked for what? What were we looking for, guys? A horn? No. A femur. We were looking for femurs, and for 3 days, we dug and dug and dug and dug and found nothing. So on the third day, you know, we're looking at our watches because we had to drive back to Los Angeles and get to work the next day, right? Or maybe 2 days. Yeah, because that's a long drive. That's right. It's a 2-day drive, isn't it? So we're running out of time, and Maggie, who was the ranch owner, and she's in the book here, wonderful Christian, but salt of the earth, Maggie. She grew up on this 1,000-acre ranch, and loves the Lord, loves the Lord. Now she's a chain smoker. And I don't know about you, but cigarette smoke, wow, it gets to me. Now I'm a reformed smoker, and I make the worst kind of non-smoking. Non-smoking. But Maggie was so cool. She had this quad, and she had these rifles strapped to it, and she had a sidearm on her hip. And I knew that Maggie liked us when she invited us into her living room, and we saw the sawed-off end of the chuck wagon that her mom fed hundreds of cowboys out of. They sawed off the end and attached it to the living room wall. And we got to go in and look at this piece of history. So she lived on this 1,000-acre ranch, and they didn't have a home there until she was, okay, so from an infant to 12, they lived in teepees all over the ranch as they herded these cattle. And so, amazing story. We had a great time. So Maggie goes, I think there's a Triceratops horn up here on a cliff. So she led us to the cliff, and sure enough, on the surface was a hardened, beautiful rock, beautiful piece of Triceratops horn with lichens all over it, beautiful colors, but of course obviously we couldn't use it. It had to be in the ground. And so then we were poking around, and there was this little piece sticking out of the ground. Well, it turned out to be a 48-inch long Triceratops horn that went into the cliff at about a 45-degree angle. So 8 hours later we got this out of the ground. Brought it back to Los Angeles, and I started examining it, and what I want to do now is to show you the video of what I consider to be the most explosive find in soft tissue discoveries. Now, why do I say that? Because I'm looking at all the other discoveries and I'm not seeing anything like what we found. I'm just going to play this video. And this is a piece of fibrillar bone. This is bone that has not yet been mineralized by the stretchiness in this. In fact, I had to pull this apart so hard just to get it to tear. And then it would just bounce right back. And so this is a piece of bone that has not yet been mineralized. It hasn't been infused with the hard minerals that the animal uses. You can turn on the light again, Mark, to turn it into bone. It's an amazing organ. It's full of tiny cells. In fact, this stretchy tissue is full of tiny cells, which I'm going to show you tonight, called osteocytes. They're bone cells. What the bone does is it lays down a carpet of collagen, and then the cells come and line themselves up like soldiers on parade, and then they pull in the mineral, the phosphorus and the calcium, a little bit of magnesium, and they harden themselves in. And this whole structure becomes hard bone, and they're inside of it. And while they're building it, they're building little tiny holes, okay, called canaliculi, little tiny holes that go in all three directions from the cell. And then they put little cell processes through there called filopodia, thread feet, and all of them connect. So all of the cells in 3 dimensions are connected. And these cells, it's amazing what these things can do. They can tell if you're walking, running, lifting, or standing still. They're measuring compression on your bone, the mechanical compression that your bones experience while you're lifting or running. They're measuring it and they're monitoring it, and they find micro cracks in your bones, and then they send out another cell called an osteoclast, which can dissolve broken bone, and then an osteoblast comes in and rebuilds the bone. Scientists have said that I've heard your entire skeleton gets replaced every 12 to 15 years. Okay? So these cells are phenomenal, and most people know nothing about them. Anyway, this is a spectacular find. Why? Because it's not an encapsulated bone. Okay? This Triceratops horn, and I'm sorry to walk back and forth, you poor videographer. I'm going to keep you really busy. You see all those holes in the middle of this bone? This is the horn. Those are vascular channels. Those are blood vessels. Okay? Now this guy was facing upwards in the ground. So all the water and mud and bacteria and microbes and insects were going straight down into the center of this horn. They were loaded with those things. Also plant roots, as I mentioned. Fungal mats. When I broke apart one piece of the horn, there was a huge white fungal mat inside, which was sending out, I have no words tonight. There I go again, Charlene. Sending out little hyphae, thank you, throughout the whole bone. So the fact that we found anything is spectacular. Now the fact that we're the only ones in the world to find stretchy fibular bone like this is spectacular. That's God. Okay? That's God. And I'll tell you, all the credit, all the glory goes to Him alone. I pinch myself because I don't, why me, Lord? You know I have the faith. He blessed me with this equipment, these electron microscopes. I own my own electron microscopes. Long before I thought of going on this project. But now I see why He did it. He was arranging everything. So it is a spectacular find. And I have to point that out because you will come up against, if you use this in your witnessing, and guys, this is a witnessing tool, by far, okay, bar none. I often tell this story, maybe I've told it here. I have so much fun with this. If I'm in the grocery store line and the cashier says, "How you doing?" "I'm great. Oh, I'm great." And then they're thinking, well, he must have won the lottery or something. I went on a dinosaur dig. Now everybody in the line is looking at me. Why? Who's been on a dinosaur dig? Who wants to go on a dinosaur dig? Yeah, right? So they're all looking at me. So I've got their attention. And then I say, we found a 48-inch long Triceratops horn. I'd actually do this motion. Okay? At first Deb was embarrassed with me, but then she saw why this is effective. Found a 48-inch long Triceratops horn, and it was full of soft tissue. And I squeeze my skin like that. And then I wait, because they're looking at me, and the wheels are going in their head. Wait, what did he just say? He said he found a Triceratops horn, and it was full of soft tissue, and he's pinching his arm. They're getting a mental picture that is shocking them. Okay? And suddenly, they're thinking, 68 million years old? 120 million years old? How can this be? I mean, I have a fish dies in the tank, and in 4 days, it's in pieces at the bottom of the aquarium. Right? I buried Fluffy out in the yard 10 years ago, and the new dog just last week dug it up, and it's gross and disgusting, but there's nothing soft in there. You see, we know through our life experiences that this is impossible. And so now they're thinking, their worldview is crumbling. And I can get to the gospel in about 60 seconds after that. Yeah, if the fossils have soft tissue in them, they gotta be young. Right? That's the intrinsic feeling that we come up with. That's intuitive. If the fossils are young, the deposits have to be young. If the deposits are young, the earth has to be young. And now, Genesis might be an accurate, real history of the planet. And God put Adam and Eve in a garden. It says so in Genesis. And everything was cool. and then Satan came along and wrecked everything, and they sinned, they disobeyed God, sin came into the world, and that's why you and I need Jesus Christ. Bam! They just heard the gospel, okay? And they thought we were going to learn about dinosaur days. You see how it works, guys? Now I'll tell you something else. This is important for the millennials. Why? Because they're staring at their little screens, okay? They're doing Pokemon Go. They're walking out onto the freeway. Did you see that?
Yeah.
They're walking out onto the freeway looking for Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's crazy.
What are you talking
This is,
Yeah.
you know what Pokemon, okay, Pokemon Go is an imaginary character that only shows up when you're at the GPS coordinates that the satellite tells the main computer, okay, display the little character for him, then you capture him on your phone. And the more you capture, the higher up in the game you go. You haven't seen this? Go onto YouTube and search Pokemon Go and look at the crowds of people, like the Pied Piper is leading them.
Yeah.
Okay? This is mass control.
Yeah. We were at the Long Beach Aquarium of the Pacific about a month and a half ago, and we came out, and they were all doing that. I told my wife, I said, you know what they're doing? She said, no, they're like zombies.
Yeah.
They're looking for Pokemon.
Yeah.
You know, hundreds of people around that Bay Area, just looking around for the characters.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I'm wondering if it's a test. Maybe these guys said, hey, let's try this and see how many people we can control at one time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, my brain thinks like that. You
No,
know?
same thing.
I thought the same thing.
We were in Hawaii. and
Demonic.
There he is. He's right here. And just huge crowd of people, and they're all flipping their phones and
Yeah.
looking at it. It's crazy.
Yeah. So this, and they get all their information through Yahoo News, through all this stuff. So what are they getting? The lie about millions of years, the lie about evolution, and now we're finding that college kids get upset when they find out I'm a creationist. They actually come and start, chewing me up, because they're offended by it. And so soft tissue and dinosaur bone cuts right through that. It just short circuits it. And now you've got their attention, and you can put the gospel in their heart. See, so, wow.
We're trying to put as much as we can on YouTube,
Yeah.
so that, because they love free information,
Right.
they're not gonna pay for anything, but if it's free and it's up there, they'll look at it, so.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
have a quick question.
Yes.
I just saw a program on the Anasazis and cannibalism, and they were chopping up fresh bones to demonstrate it. I'm a little confused how bone can be so elastic. To explain that.
Great question. How can this bone be so elastic? The horn, the way its architecture is, it has zones in it. Okay? It has an outer zone, and then the growth comes from the inside. It's different from a tree. A tree, the cambium layer on a tree is on the outside. And actually, these guys are the weed whackers. They can kill your tree by going around it and
Just
killing.
under the bark.
Yeah, just under the bark is a cambium. It's different in a bone. The growing layer is on the inside, and so it forces everything out as it grows. And so, in the inside, they call it the horn core. If you look on my YouTube channel, one of my videos is me peeling and peeling a piece of this soft tissue off the inside of the horn core. And so that's where this stuff is found. And what happens is that horn core grows through the whole horn. And so they will produce this collagen mat all along it, then they'll line up on it, they'll build a bone on it, and voila, a piece of bone. And as it grows, they'll continue to produce that on the inside. So that's where this soft, stretchy stuff came from the inside. It wasn't on the outside. So it was protected, but that horn was fractured, and so it shouldn't have been there if it's 68 million years old.
So this is the same for our bones as well.
Our bones are a little bit different because I don't think we put down sheets as big as the Triceratops does. We get bone growth in what are called osteons. Osteons are circles of bone that form around a blood vessel. So you have a blood vessel growing, and then it starts forming bone around the blood vessel. Now this is pretty small. I mean, our blood vessels in our bones are much smaller than those are there. This was a 20-foot tall, 20-ton animal. I mean, they were ginormous. And so everything's on a bigger scale with them. But our bone growth happens in these osteons, which grow this way around the blood vessel. So it's a little bit different in a Triceratops than it is with our bones. We're just designed differently.
But it's still growing from the center out.
It still grows from the center out of the compact bone. We have what's called cancellous bone in the center of our bones. Our bones are not massive throughout. Okay, if you look at this guy, this is pretty much massive throughout. Okay, this is called compact bone, and this is called cancellous bone. But even their cancellous bone is massive compared to ours. We have large open spaces in our bones, and that's where the bone marrow and stuff grows. Now the horn is different from, say, their femur. I think their femur is a lot like our femur in that it has larger open spaces and the cancellous bone in the center. But this is a whole different thing. This guy, to me, now I differ from the scientific literature on this. This to me was an arm of battle. This was an implement of battle. I don't think, of course, they were designed to fight. I mean, in the beginning, of course, sin changed everything, right? So, but I think they had to defend themselves, and that's why they had this massive frill that protected their neck, and they had these horns. And Debbie is a fencer, and so she understands how sabers have to flex. And if you tried to flex a bone that was hollow, you'd break it, you'd fracture it. Okay, that's why, we can fracture a bone skiing, right? Just with an impact. But these guys, they stick this 30 inches into a T-Rex, you're going to have that huge T-Rex, bobbing back and forth on it. Then they have to remove it. So it's like a saber. And that's what she pointed out to me, is that this is designed like a saber so that it won't break when it's in battle. Now, I've taken heat for my position on that from certain evolutionists who insist that the frill and the horns were only for sexual dimorphism, which is when different sexes are looking for each other and can recognize each other.
So they're recognizing a purpose in the structure then?
There's differences between males and females on horn size and shape.
Yeah, but they were saying that those particular features were for the purpose of distinguishing the he's and the she's.
Yeah.
So that meant there was a purpose somewhere, or purposer, or...
Yeah, it's for recognition of opposite sex.
Yeah, but that metaphor was in the mind of somebody. Can there be purpose without a purposer?
Sorry, it's been a long day.
Or corollary between rhinoceros tusk or horn, antlers.
Well, rhinoceros is hair. It's a mat of hair.
Okay.
It's not bone. Now,
Okay.
if you think of longhorn, bull, when you see those, they get sawed off, they bleed. So they have to pack that to prevent infection and keep it from bleeding. So I'm not a horn bone expert. Remember, I'm a microscopist. Okay?
One thing
Microscope
is
scientist.
that for the large the animals such as the Triceratops, you're going to see the massive and thick bones, and for lightweight creatures such as such as us, you're going to see things like bones that are hollow. In the case of birds who have to fly, you see a very different kind of bone now. The bones are very hollow and thin in shells, and the thin outer surfaces. And a bird is obviously designed to be able to fly, so the bones have to have a strength-to-weight ratio that you wouldn't expect for other kinds of creatures. In the same way that in building an airplane, all of the structure has to be built with a sense of strength-to-weight ratio, because it has to be strong enough to fly and light enough to fly. And so you see, looking at these various creatures, some interesting outworking in the bones because of what the creatures were made to be.
And if you remember that scene from Jurassic Park where they shoved their arm into the Triceratops poop, remember, to see what the Triceratops had been eating, then you appreciate that Triceratops doesn't fly. Yes, that was my attempt, Mark, and so I'm blaming on you for starting it. Okay, I've gone far afield here, but I want to answer your questions as we...
I have heard that the Triceratops frill, they have found marks of battle on it.
Yes, they've actually found embedded teeth in the frill and in skulls of Triceratops. So I was arguing, in fact, you're going to see this in the paper that I'm going to discuss. I was arguing from a microscopic point of view that these frill and horns were armament and for battle based on the microarchitecture that I was seeing. Really different from some of the other bones that I had looked at. So, but anyway, I'm trying not to go too far afield and stay on topic and stay within the time frame, which is, when do I end here?
When you get done.
Midnight.
When you get done.
When I get done. So this is the presentation that I did on May the 7th of this year for the Southern California Academy of Science meeting at University of Southern California. Now you talk about going into the lions, Dan. But guys, I'm doing it, and I'm going to keep doing it. And they sit there and they listen to me, and they don't shoot me yet. So, and this one is first report of isolated soft osteocytes. Notice I'm using the language to get their attention. First report. No one else has reported this. Isolated. I've separated these cells from the bone. You're going to see pictures of that. You're actually going to see a movie about that. Things at their television set. Because they can't believe that the Southern California Academy of Sciences let this weirdo in to their meeting. But 4 years in a row, guys. Pray for me. Pray for me. I'm going out there on the front lines. This has to be done. You know, some Christians got to stand up and do this. And not just build our ark and hide in our ark and say, come see the ark, isn't this beautiful? If we're going to win the lost, and particularly the scientific lost, we've got to go to where they are. And this is where it's at. Okay, so pray for me. And this was, I think, their 106th meeting?
I think
I can't remember.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask
no,
you.
that was my paper number.
Oh.
I think this may have been their 150th meeting, actually. 150th, so...
You mean annual meeting?
Yeah.
Wow, so it's pre-1900s.
Yeah, this goes back. So
18.
So a lot of the information you're going to see is based on this presentation that I made, but I just want to do a quick review
19th century.
of what I've been doing and show you why I need your help and support. Okay? I'm publishing in the secular literature. This is the first publication that started this all. The soft sheets of fibular bone from a fossil of supraorbital horn of the dinosaur Triceratops. So this is the first one. That was 2013. Actually, before that, I published a cover picture on the cover of American Laboratory of dinosaur, that stretchy tissue that you saw, the fiber of bone, and look at all these bone cells in there. Now, when you get a cover, you get to write a caption, and that's all you get to write. And so my caption, it's not in. Actually, this was what they were doing is they were running the cover and saying, if you guess this cover, next month we'll tell you what it is. You'll win a $10 Amazon gift card. So if you look in the following volume, you'll see my caption, and it says that I thin sectioned this on a cryostat. Now, none of you guys know what a cryostat is. That's not what matters. What matters is everybody who reads this journal knows what a cryostat is, and they know that it's soft. You're freezing the tissue and cutting it with a blade. Ergo, it's not permineralized. It ain't rock. You're cutting bone in a frozen section machine with a tungsten blade. Okay? That's a signal. This came out in the trial. Because they were saying we knew nothing about Armitage's work. I had all kinds of emails and all kinds of congratulations. In fact, this cover they wrote up in the department newsletter. Let me give you a little background here, because you're wondering what was I doing at California State University Northridge. I was running $1 million microscopy laboratory in the Department of Biology, and I was the microscopist on campus. I had people from many departments coming to my lab asking me for help, and I gave them help. And so I had a lot of attaboys. And about halfway through my career there, of 38 months, I started asking for letters of recommendation. And everybody was going, why? We love you. Are you leaving? No, I just need it for my portfolio. And what did I get? The most fantastic letters of recommendation you can imagine. All of this came into the court case. Okay? Because they're saying he was just a part-time technician. He didn't really do any teaching. All lies. We knew nothing about his work. They wrote this up in the department newsletter called Biosphere. And I had a lot of emails from people in the department saying, attaboy, Mark, keep it up. This is what we want you for. It's really funny, too, because when we deposed my first supervisor, William Cromer, you know what a deposition is, right? You come in, you sit down, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. You're in court, even though you're in the lawyer's office. And a stenographer is there recording everything, even your sighs and hiccups. Okay? And Cromer disclosed in his deposition that yes, Mark, when he interviewed, gave full disclosure that he was a creationist and a Christian. He disclosed that he went to the Institute for Creation Research for his master's degree, and he disclosed that he had tons of publications, both in secular and creationist journals, and that there was even a critique of some of Mark's work on the CSUN website. This is coming from Cromer. And they asked him, well, what was the most impressive thing about his resume? His master's degree from ICR. And my lawyer just, wait a minute. You know that's a Christian creationist institution, right? Yeah, but his master's degree. It was a thing of beauty to watch this. So they did know about my research because they saw the cover, they lauded the cover, and they wrote it up in the Biosphere. And so that was part of their downfall, which we're going to talk about. So that was the first paper. Second paper, I went to the annual meeting of the Microscopy Society of America. This is actually an international meeting of people who are from all over the globe. They had a big globe map and all these pins put in there from Asia and Australia and North Africa. People from all over the world. So I presented. a light and electron microscopic study of soft bone osteocytes. There it is. I'm going to show you soft bone cells from a Triceratops.
Fetus.
And I'll tell you, it was a thing of beauty because by this time, Mary Schweitzer, maybe you've heard that name, North Carolina State University, who's done a lot of work in this field, and has gotten most of the notoriety, published her iron preservation theory paper. I took 2 of her pictures from her paper, flipped them upside down, and showed them in my talk. And I showed that the iron, she had the picture this way where all the iron was at the top and all this tissue underneath it was preserved. And I flipped it upside down and showed how, you know how limbs get severed from animals in storms and they are in mud and livor mortis sets in? You know what livor mortis is? Not rigor mortis. Livor mortis is when the blood pools at the bottom of the limb. And she had flipped her picture around, and I flipped it, which was the right way, and said, look how it pooled at the bottom. And everybody's going like this, all the heads, all the PhDs in the audience. And then I said, now how does this iron way down here reach across this whole tissue structure and preserve it? They're all doing this. Because they get it, they understand, you see. So that was the second paper, they published that, that's in the proceedings. And then I published in microscopy today, I don't think I brought, did I bring, yeah, I brought microscopy today. Now, I'm really proud of this paper too, because the figures are beautiful. The cells in here are just fabulous. I mean, they really gave me a lot of real estate here with big pictures. Now, the paper that I've had rejected now 3 times, it's still, I hope, going to be published, was rejected by these guys very kindly. The editor said, your paper took so much editing that I don't think I want to go through that again. What was he saying to me? I call heck for publishing this paper. Now what's really interesting is, one of the members of the Department of Biology at Cal State Northridge was the editor for the Acta Histochemica paper. Okay? This was the one that started it all. He was deposed. He could not say enough good things about me. Dr. Stephen Oppenheimer. Wonderful, wonderful man. Wonderful man. And they asked him about the paper, and they asked him, were there calls for rejection? Oh, yes! He had a very high voice. It was like that, who was that female expert cook? What was her name?
Oh.
Yeah, Julia. That's her, Julia. Yeah, it's a Julia Child's voice. But just a lovely man, and especially when he gets to cite it. But it was so funny because we're all sitting there, you know, in our suits and ties, and he's in running pants, and I don't know, some kind of top, and he's laying back. His feet are almost up on the table, laying back, very comfortable, while they're deposing him. And he said, "Oh yeah, there were calls before and after to reject it and throw it out. No, we're not going to reject it. It's one of the best science papers I've ever seen." Now that's from a PhD who'd been at Cal State Northridge for 50 years, an editor of this journal. Wonderful, wonderful man. Yes, sir.
Briefly, you're talking about it. Did you get released or something?
I was terminated. I was thrown out the day my paper was published online. They met in secret, and this is all in the court documents. We finally found the smoking guns. They dumped about 11,000. Well, I had to read about 11,000 pages. Maybe it's because I had to read some of them twice. But I know they dumped at least 8,000 or 10,000 pages on us. At the last minute, they waited and waited and waited until we threatened to take them to the judge. They're required to do disclosure. Okay? It's called discovery. And they resist and resist and resist and resist until the last moment, and then they dump 10,000 pages on you. 3 days before you've got to appear before the judge. I was sleeping
like
2-3 hours a night, reading 3,000 pages a day for weeks. Okay? But we found it all. We found it all. And the day my paper appeared online, in the online version of the journal, which they publish 4 to 5 months before it goes into print, then they put out the print journal. They met in secret and decided to terminate me. 2 weeks later, I was gone. Okay? In the middle of a semester, while I had students, my lab was full, jammed. And they said, well, we ran out of money, his lab wasn't being utilized, the electron microscopes were underutilized, he was only a temporary anyway, we decided to end his contract. All lies. Okay? We proved through documents and deposition that my position was written into a Keck grant and an NIH grant. My position was written into a grant for the National freaking Institutes of Health. Okay? Now, do you want to appear as a researcher who took, 200 grand from the National Institutes of Health and answer why you terminated somebody that you said was written into this grant, and as long as this grant is going, that person is here? They sent me to a factory in Pennsylvania for a week to learn the most high technology instrument, a confocal microscope you can imagine, $350,000 microscope. And I was it on campus. I trained everybody, professors, PhDs included. That was my job, okay? So, yeah, they threw me out as soon as the paper was published. And 3 years later, I finally saw justice. Okay, let me continue here before you throw me out. Yeah. No? Okay.
Keep going.
Keep going. Okay. Now, as I mentioned to you, I've spoken 4 times at the Southern California Academy of Sciences. I've enjoyed it. I want to keep doing it as long as they won't have me. Please pray that they will let me come back and present this material, because there is a phobia about this material. Soft dinosaur tissue is a career killer, as I can attest. Very few people want to touch this thing with a 10-foot pole because they know it's a career killer, and even Mary Schweitzer is feeling the burn. Okay?
They have to edit their comments.
They do. They do. And so, my prayer at this point is this. I want to find soft tissue in enough different species. That's why nano is so important, you're going to see tonight. That I establish the point that this is everywhere out there. Okay? I want it now. I'm running out of gas. I'm not, I'm slowing down. My micro technique is not what I used to be, and I've been off of caffeine for 10 years. So I don't do that. But, just like the Lord strengthened Joshua and Caleb, and, that's what I'm looking for. I want to have that strength from the Lord for as long as I can do this to finish well. Okay? I want to finish well. And I want to provide a roadmap for those who come behind. There's some sharp young guys coming into creation science. And I want them to pick up this mantle and run with it. Because I envision a soft dinosaur tissue research institute. Why not? Why not a brick and mortar building next to a Christian university, bringing in the students as interns into the different departments, okay? Research, machine maintenance and repair, outreach, social media, materials productions, auditorium speaking events. Bring them in. Let them intern. Okay, train them how to do it. Let them train others as they go to move on. Bring in the professors to start, design, and manage experiments. And bring in their students under them to do the work and publish it in secular journals. Guys, we're not doing this. And we can do it. We can do it. Now, I think the big four, they're going to go by the way of the dinosaur. I do. AIG, ICR, CRS, CMI. The big four creation ministries that do nothing but pump out books and videos. I get emails every other day from Answers in Genesis saying, $10 off! 5 days only! This fabulous new DVD set that we just... Come on, enough is enough. How many DVDs can you buy? And who's buying the DVDs? The person, the wonderful Christian family that you go home and they have a wall stacked with DVDs that they watch once and they put back in the wall. How is that winning people to Jesus Christ? How is that preaching the gospel to the lost? What did Jesus tell John's disciples to say to John? When John was in prison for pointing out that, I forget the king's name now, he'd stolen his brother's wife. Herod? And they said, are you the one or is there another to come? They were doubting, weren't they? They were doubting. What did Jesus say? Go tell John that the lame are healed, the blind are given sight, and the gospel is preached to the poor. Why aren't we doing that, guys? We need to be preaching the gospel to the poor in knowledge who've been lied to about the age of this earth and the reality of Genesis as our real history on this planet. That's our job. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. We're building amusement parks for Christians to come. Okay, they get edified. I get that. Okay, they may be strengthened in their knowledge of Scripture. I get that. But how is that bringing people to Jesus Christ? I don't see it. I don't see it. That's where my heart is. That's why I believe God gave me this ministry. Because He knows that's where my heart is at. See? That's why I want to give everything away. Get it out there.
And why you found that bone with hours left. You know, that's...
It's all God. The whole thing is God. We could talk for 5 hours about my past life and how Satan has tried to take me out on so many different levels, so many different ways. But God has stood in the gap and He protected me. And not only protected me, He provided what I needed to bring this lab together and to find these things. So pray for me that I can continue to go into this lion's den. Now, this last paper on cells and tissues collected from the frill and the condyle, I still haven't published that. 3 years, maybe longer. I've submitted it to Acta Histochemica. It was first accepted. I made all the revisions and then it was rejected. I did exactly what they told me to do and then they rejected it. That took about a year to a year and a half. The reviewer did not understand how the electron beam works. And I couldn't teach this person. And besides, I didn't have the PhD, so what do I know anyway? The same paper was then rejected by the Southern California Academy of Sciences Bulletin. They published a bulletin for about 112 years. And I've published 5 or so papers in it. And have been a member for 20 years. And I want to read you some of the comments from the reviewers. So it's been rewritten, was recently submitted to the Microscopy Society of America, the journal, and they published this guy also. They published Microscopy Today, but this is the big journal. This is the big journal, the one I want to get in with this. Now, I submitted the paper 9 months ago, 10 months ago. Waited and waited and waited and waited and waited and waited. Finally, I thought, okay, I'm going to contact the editor. They probably rejected it and forgot to tell me because I'm worthless. Right? So I contacted the editor. She goes, well, you know, most of the reviewers that you gave me, Mary Schweitzer, Robert Backer, all the big shots in paleontology, either never answer or refuse to review the paper. Okay?
Uh-huh.
Give me a whole new set of reviewers. So I just did a few weeks ago. Please pray. Please pray. This is a very important paper. Why? It's a world first discovery of soft tissues in Triceratops condyle. Okay? And this was buried less than 5 inches from the surface of the Badlands of Montana. Facing like this, up, with the skull. We took out a big cube of the skull. By the way, this piece right here, I think this is part of the cheekbone. I'm not an anatomist, but I think this is part of the cheekbone of the Triceratops. But I don't know. Who knows what that is? I don't have a clue. And we found it in frill. Soft tissue in frill. World first discoveries. Very important paper that should be published. But it's in their hands now. Now here's some of the reviews. Then I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. I recommend rejection of this manuscript because it is fundamentally scientifically flawed. There is no such thing as unfossilized non-avian dinosaur bone.
Unscientific.
Wake up.
Yeah, I've examined every bone that's been out of the ground and every bone that's in the ground, and I can tell you that there is no such thing. Now, to be fair, and before I get to the next sentence, to be fair, there's a technical use for the word fossil. And the technical use for the word fossil is anything that was once alive that's buried in the ground. Now, most people don't understand that. Most people say a fossil is something that turned into rock over millions of years. That's actually called permineralization. Permineralization. So I'll say, okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But then you read the second sentence and you take the benefit away. It only exists in the unscientific beliefs of that's his word, of creationists to whom the author is allied to. Now, I think I know who this reviewer is. And he's one of the ones that perjured himself to the judge in our case. He's one of the ones that sent a declaration, a signed and sworn declaration through his attorney to the judge saying Armitage was temporary. We didn't have money. His lab was not in use. We had to get rid of the electron microscopes anyway. What did we discover in deposition, which he, with his own mouth, said Armitage was not temporary. We weren't cutting back on any money, and all the figures that I used, I over-exaggerated on. We're going to save $100,000 a year. Well, we found out it's more like $4,000 a year. Is that right, Dr. Fill in the blank? Yes, that's right. You're going to have to, I'm writing a book, okay? I am. I'm writing a book, and it's going to have all the court documents in it. So if you want to have some great, arm gripping, bedside reading, you'll have to pick that up. This guy perjured himself. He signed under penalty of perjury to the judge and sent that in, and we proved it all wrong. So I think that's who this was, but anyway.
Mr. Piltman.
Yeah, I'm just saying. And here's another one. I decline to review this article in detail and reject it for the following reasons. Do these specimens have repository catalog numbers? What collection is it in? In other words, okay, you dug this out of the ground, Bubba, but because you didn't put a tag on it, put a number on that tag, and put it in the museum where it could get lost, or you might actually work on it, it's not a real bone. It doesn't exist. In our universe, where we control the publishing,
Yeah.
it doesn't exist. You see? That's the rig. That's the rig that the Donald's talking
Rig.
about. Okay? Right?
Right.
Okay. All Triceratops remains are fossilized, by the way. Now, I think he's driving at the same thing that this guy was. That these have to be rock. Why? Because they're 68 million years old. Come on. What are you, stupid? Right? That's not, I think this is where they're coming from. They refuse to accept. Many people, many scientists to this day refuse to accept that there's soft tissue in dinosaur bones. Even though their own people have been publishing it left and right. Okay? They still refuse to believe it. All right. They are questionable statements in the abstract, and it does not appear that any histology. Now, this is the one usable critique that came out of this short review. It does not appear that any histology was done on the specimens to support their interpretations, actually my interpretations, of a biomechanical advantage of frill and brain case. What's he saying? You claim that the frill and the brain case, which the horn is an extension of, are combat hardened weapons. And you're basing that on the microarchitecture that you're seeing in your specimens. But you didn't thin section them, thin section. You didn't make thousands and thousands, because that's what histology is. You didn't make thousands and thousands of thin sections so we can all look at them and all talk about it and all decide, well, I don't know, Charlie, what do you think? Maybe that's useful, but it would cost me $100,000 to get the equipment to do that, so can't go there. Now here's one really good one, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. Twice he says the paper, he says he recommends publication, and he gave some very small changes that I certainly do, and did most of them. So 1 out of 3 reviewers at that journal gave me an actual common sense, logical, well-presented review. And so that one I appreciate. Okay, the lawsuit. So I'm working along happily. My paper's published. Everybody's excited. I'm getting kudos via email from members of the department. And all of a sudden my boss comes in and he goes, "What have you been doing in here?" Because I had a suite of 7 labs behind a big double metal door with an Omnicode lock on it. So you had to punch in the code. Guess who didn't have the code? A lot of professors. Guess who was ticked off about that? A lot of professors. Why? That's our resource. I'm not going to let some technician tell me whether or not I can have access to this equipment that is ours anyway, right? Oh man. You talk about learning to be loving and diplomatic and helpful and encouraging. But I did it. I did it. And that's one reason why I think we won. I'm going to give you some reasons here at the end why I think we won. My boss comes in and says, "What have you been doing in here? Raping co-eds?" Come on, Bill. He goes, I don't understand it. There's a witch hunt going on against you right now. What's going on? Bill, the only thing I can think of is that the paper was published online the other day. And so I think it's a reaction. Well, I don't know. I've seen this look in their eyes before, and I don't think I can save you. And he goes away. And then he comes back a few hours later. He's carrying all these papers, and his hair is a little more messed up than it was before. And "Would you please resign?" Bill, why am I going to resign? I love my job. 2 days a week, and I'm making $36 a year for 2 days a week, and all the benefits on top, and I'm having the time of my life. And my students, I trained one student from the physics department. I trained her, And she went to Caltech to work, collaboratively with a PhD over there. They offered her a job on the spot to run their confocal microscope. That made me feel good. Made me feel like, wow, I did a good job training that person. See? And so, and I have dozens of students like that who went on to do well. No, I'm not going to resign. Okay, I'm pretty sure you're going to be terminated. Goes away. Comes back and goes, yeah, you're going to be terminated. Next week you'll get your termination letter. Okay, Bill. And the very next week I got my termination letter. I was given 2 weeks notice, and March the 23rd, I was gone. In a matter of 4 weeks, that happened. After this was published online, 4 weeks I was gone. So I filed suit. And 80,000 pages on the internet were born about Armitage, that stupid creationist, suing a major university in Los Angeles. The big bad evolutionist terminated Armitage, and now, all he wants is money, blah, blah, blah. I mean, just Google, don't even Google my name. Google CSUN dinosaur. CSUN, California State University, Northridge. CSUN dinosaur. And look at the 80,000 pages that come up. Okay? Read some of the blogs. Read some of the vitriolic hatred that pours out of some of these people on the blogs. Okay? And how I didn't have a chance. I was even interviewed by the journal Nature. They even took my picture and put it in the journal Nature. Okay? And all the comments after that, well, he doesn't have a chance, it's blah, blah, blah. They had to get rid of him. I mean, would you hire a Hindu to be a butcher? Seriously, okay? They had all these examples, The university, they have to hire people that they know are going to deliver true science to their students. It's like hiring somebody who believes in a flat earth and putting them in the geography department, Seriously, that's what they were saying, stuff like that. So, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that the Lord's given me a thick skin, and I can just laugh at some of this stuff. But it's sad. It's sad. Because they're so lost. They're so lost. And, man, I just pray that they get it. Pray that they get it. So, yes.
Was there anything in the paper that was talking about religiosity, or it's all just science?
Pure science.
Pure science, okay.
And I made the only conclusion I drew in the paper is that this is important and we need to study it more. That was my conclusion. Okay? Now, you read the blogs. Oh, Armitage shouldn't have brought his Bible into this paper. Why was he talking about 6,000 years when we know these things are 68 million years old? Why was he banging his Bible? How did the journal actually allow this Bible banger to publish his Bible? Now, obviously, none of them read the paper. Okay?
They never do.
But this just goes on and on and on, especially on YouTube. Man, it's just unbelievable. My YouTube videos get thousands of comments. My first video that I put up in early 2013 has had 22,000 views, which is not a lot, but for me, first video, I thought that was pretty cool. But go read some of the comments. And it's a really crummy video. I mean, seriously, I didn't know what I was doing. I filmed everything on the Mac, Seriously, I'm like so excited. I had to go out and buy the expensive cameras and all that. So now my videos look a little more professional. But I was even chastised by the president of the Creation Research Society. This doesn't reflect good on us. I don't think it's going to do very well. Why don't you tear it down? It's got 20,000 views. So, and a lot of my videos have a lot of views, but just the vitriol is amazing to me. So, and I could spend 2 hours just talking about my interactions back and forth with these people on the YouTube channel. But, you know, I end
Like
up telling
Facebook.
them, you know what, you're not my target audience. I know you think you're my target audience, but you're not. You're welcome, and I'll tell them, if you can add to the science here, you're welcome to stay. If you start swearing, 3 strikes and you're gone. And I do. And then I get, oh, Armitage threw me off his channel because he can't handle what I have to say about him. Oh my gosh. But I tell them, look, and I'm tough. I'm rough on them. Because these people are hard-hearted. They're hard-hearted. Now, the ones that come in and ask a question, wow, I'm so glad you asked that. Let me answer it for you. And then if they turn out to be a mole, and some of them have, I slam them down. I call them God haters. They hate that I call them God haters. But that's what they are. They hate God. And they need to hear it. Somebody needs to tell them. And I say to them, look, go to Hell Creek, dig up some bones like I did, bring them back to your lab like I did, process them like I did, find interesting novel stuff and publish it in a well-respected international journal like I did, and then I end it by saying in all caps, put up or shut up. Okay? I don't know. Is Jesus going to spank me for that one? I don't know. I don't know.
Nope.
But I think this is all they get. It's all they understand. And a lot of them drop off. And then I've got a few groupies who go, where's all the Evotards? Where did all the Evotards go? Mark beat them up and they all left, you know. So it's very interesting. But we won. We won. The judge ruled on our case. They submitted what they call a motion for summary judgment and a motion for summary adjudication. Now, that's a little different. Summary judgment is, hey judge, they haven't proved their case. Here's all the facts. Mark was a temporary, running out of money. His lab was not being used. My lab was so choked, they were begging me to work a full week. And we have all these emails saying, please work an extra week. Please work extra days each week. We need you. And they said, what can we do? I said, let's make a set of videos. We made a set of 12-hour videos with me teaching basic training on the confocal microscope. We put it up online. That's had over 40,000 views. And they're still using it today to train the students, okay, before they would come into the lab. But that wasn't enough. By the way, they paid me $4,500 for 3 Saturdays. It was really funny because they had the professor, Professor Paul, I forget his last name right now, really nice guy, really very supportive of me. And the videographer, Deb would hold up the keyword panel, so I knew retake. Is that what you call it? One retake in the 12 hours of filming. And so Paul, at the very end of the video, in the what are the words? Yeah, the outtakes. You know, some of these movies have these really funny outtakes at the end. Paul goes, well, we had to retake him one time, and he shows it. He shows it the one time. So now, that's God. Okay? That's God giving me the training, giving me the ability to just let it pour out, okay, and have it available for these kids to learn from. It's not about me. And I've said that from day one. None of this is about me. This is not about me. It's about God's Word. It's about the infallibility of God's Word. It's about God's character. You know what my prayer was often during the lawsuit? God, avenge your character. Stand for your character, Lord. Because this is what this is about. It's about God's character. Anyway, they asked for a summary adjudication, which means we want you, Your Honor, to use case law now. Okay, we've shown you our facts. They have none. We have to answer everything, of course. Everything gets answered with reams and reams of paper. Okay? Thousands of pages of answers. And so use case law. Your Honor, go through this and logically point out, based on what everybody's saying, in other words, adjudicate. Do what you are. Do what you do. You are a judge, adjudicate. And there were five areas. We conceded on 2 of them. The first one was a technical ruling, a technical, what the proper term is, technical mistake about the suit following under FEHA. Quick story, in order to sue the state of California, you need to get permission from the state of California to sue. Did you hear what I said?
There.
In order to sue the state of California, you need permission from the state of California to sue them. Rigged,
Always.
okay? This is called FEHA, the Fair Employment and Homestead, I think. Fair Employment and Housing. Fair Employment and Housing Agency. Care of your wonderful state of California and mine,
I love it.
which is now increasing Social Security taxes. Did you hear that? Yeah. So, we got permission, but we made a technical error in our lawsuit. And so they pointed that out right away. Look, they made an error. Teacher, he did something wrong. And so we conceded that. We said, okay, fine, we'll give you that one. The last one had to do with punitive damages against the defendants. Now, because it's FEHA, punitive damages would not be against the defendants who were working as agents of the state, it would be against the state. So we conceded those 2. So there were 3 left. One of them was they discriminated against my religion. We proved it. Slam dunk. Second one was they failed to follow up on a written complaint of religious discrimination. When I complained, did I tell you about Dr. Kwok coming into my lab and telling me, we're not going to tolerate your religion in this department? Did I skip that?
You skipped
Need
it
to
this
hurry?
time, but last time you were here, you
It's
actually-
okay, so last time. So we proved that. I complained, they never followed up on it. Deb's giving me the hurry up. Sorry. I'll get there. And the third one was freedom of speech. Now, you just can't go into the courtroom and say, they took away my freedom of speech. You have to prove, you have to cross about 5 barriers in order to even be on the playing field of freedom of speech. Okay? Now, we, in our response, didn't do that because we ran out of time. So we just threw that part together. But I guarantee you, if we'd have had the time and we could have put together those answers, we would have won freedom of speech also. Okay? I won't take the time. She ruled in our favor on 2 out of those 3. And that was the case. And they said, well, okay, instead of $50,000, we'll give you $100,000. And we said, see, what? We're going to go down the street and hire a law firm that kicked your butt last time you were in court against them. And this is the number we want. And you will give us this number, or Michael is going to start the case on Monday. And then the number is this number. And obviously a much bigger number, yeah? So we went to court. And we're sitting in court. The courtroom was ours. The judge is in his chambers. They're on this side, we're on this side. The judge comes out and he goes, and they go trotting in. And then they come out and they go, it's your turn. My lawyers go trotting in. They come out and say, it's your turn. This went on for 10 hours, what was it? 9 hours, okay? And finally they come back in the courtroom and we had a number, and that was the number. And they wouldn't come up to it. And they come out and they're screaming at us. The other attorneys are screaming at us from across the courtroom, And I'm standing next to my lawyer, and this is when I turn to his ear and I say, "We own them." That's what I did. And we got our number. So, amen. The new dig, we went,
Times whatever you asked for.
should we take a 5-minute break and then? 5-minute break?
Yep.
5-minute break. And then I'll slam dunk this thing. So I found out about him because he found Nanotyrannus on one of the ranches that he manages in Montana, and I got his Facebook page, and I didn't know anything about Facebook, so I got on there on the contact thing, and I sent him like this huge email through Facebook, and I'm sure he looked at that and he just went, "Oh my gosh, a crazy." And so I waited a couple of days, he didn't answer me, and then somebody told me, "You don't do that on somebody's Facebook page. You kind of say, 'Hi, I'm me, and who are you?' and you know." So I emailed back, did the contact back, and I said, "I think I overdid it, didn't I?" And he answers, "Yes." And that was the beginning of our relationship. And Clayton and I continued to talk through Facebook and then through email over months, and I expressed to him my desires and who I was and what we wanted to do. We knew that in order to get published, you had to have something new, a new dinosaur no one's looked at before, no one's studied before. And I knew that he had found Nanotyrannus. So I said, I just was straight. I said, "We want to come to your dig. We want to dig with you." "Well, I don't really know who you are." "Well, you know, we're Christians. We have a small team. Elder and his wife, 2 elders, and 1 wife from our church are part of the team. It's really a church effort. Here's all my publication history. Here's what's been going on. Okay, you can come, but you got to go to church with me." Okay? Now, Clayton grew up very, very charismatic, but he married into a Catholic family. So he's a good Catholic boy now. So we all went to Catholic Mass. And we were sitting at the very back of the auditorium, genuflecting and doing, you know, and then kneeling and then standing. And every now and then he'd look back at us, you know, make sure we were still there. Their padre was really good, I have to say. He was an Ethiopian, I think, and very animated, and his message was really interesting. So Clayton then comes back, and it's all hugs and "Hey, friend," and so it was really neat. So we spent time with his family. Actually had us over for a meal, and we met their kids. They're going to be in the book. You'll see a couple of, well, you'll see Luke anyway in here. And so the next day, or no, it was the same day, wasn't it? I think, yeah, the same day, Sunday. Off we go out to the first ranch that we're going to work on. And you have to understand, these are working cattle ranches. So we're in a pickup truck behind him, and he's in a black old beat-up pickup truck, and Luke's in the truck. He's a miniature Clayton. Just an adorable, adorable young man. And of course, Tucson's amazing. He can jump into the truck just through the window. He doesn't need the door open. And jump out that way too. So we're banging around on these roads and up and down and bang and bang. And for a long time, 45 minutes. So finally, everything stops. And we're sitting there just chatting, you know. Bam! Like, what? And we're all, bam! And then we look, and there's a rifle pointing out of Clayton's truck. And he's shooting at a coyote. We couldn't even see him. Somewhere out here was a coyote, and they ran, Tucson went first, and they ran out there to confirm the kill, because you can't have coyotes on a cattle ranch. And he comes back, and he's just got this smile on his face all the time. Clayton's he's just like that. Well, we had to shoot a coyote. And now we can continue. And so we continued, and here we are at the bench. This is the bench we were working at, and actually this was the high,
Volcanic
and
ash.
that's as high as we would go. Now, what was really funny is that we had screwdrivers and we were pulling out, after about half an hour you had a pile about this big in front of you, and Clayton had a Bowie knife. And he's just jamming it in there and pulling out, how many T-Rex teeth?
About 3.
Just kept pulling out these T-Rex teeth, right? And his pile was like this in front of him. So, we were learning a lot with Clayton.
Volcanic
And,
ash.
just to give you an idea, though, what he does when he finds an area that is interesting, he'll just bulldoze a road into it. And I think you can see that here. Here's the bench that we're on, and look at the scope of this. How many dinosaurs do you think are buried? How many Nanotyrannus? So it was a really cool dig. We're the only ones to have dug here with him. He does make his living helping out on ranching. He doesn't own a ranch, but he helps out all the ranchers in the area. But selling the dinosaur bones is lucrative for him, and so we paid him for the bones that we collected there. We had lots of helpers. Now he also used a shovel. They just get in there with a shovel, and very interesting. So we learned a lot on that dig, and this is our 3rd or 4th dig at this point. And there's Tucson. He was a big helper. He'd come and sit right on what you were digging. So you had to pet him. You'll see a picture of him laying down asleep in the shade here in a while. But he would, and there were rattlers and stuff all over the place, and he'd go run and stick his head, his whole body, 3/4 of his body, down a hole where there could have been a rattler in there because he's looking for rabbits. And he found a rattler, and Luke killed it, right?
Not Luke.
Oh,
His
his dad. Did they shoot it, or did they?
Luke came back. And
That's right. Luke came back and said there was a
Mhm.
rattler. So they went off to kill the rattler. But we dug there for about 3 days, and we found quite a few bones. There's one of the T-Rex teeth that he pulled out. That's a really interesting dig because, first of all, the bones are black. Now, I processed the ones that we brought back, and they're not as black as they were when they came out of the earth. But when they come out, they're black. And you may have seen pictures of some of my other cells, the Triceratops cells, and they're kind of brown. If you've seen those pictures before, here we go. You can see that one right there. They're kind of brown. Well, the bones that come out of Nano are jet black, which is really interesting. Now, this is a big clay ball, and there were huge balls of clay, and there was nothing in the clay. And you can see how smooth this is when you ran your screwdriver through it. You could make a nice smooth cut in it. So it's very thick, but it's these little sand areas all around the clay, which is where the fossils came out of. Like I say, he was wonderful, very helpful. But here's Nanotyrannus. For a long time, it was argued that this was a juvenile T-Rex, but it's definitely not T-Rex. The hip bones are different. The legs are different. It does have the same front short arms, but the skull is very different. It's more angular and long. They thought it was juvenile, and then it would develop into a T-Rex. But no, its brain case is different. T-Rex's brain case is kind of sitting back, and so his eyes aren't, really focused like a real predator would be. Nano's brain case is tilted forward, right in line with his eyes, and so he's got that predator look to him. And they think that this guy could run about 70 miles an hour. And so they call it the cheetah of dinosaurs. Here's an illustration that Deb made. And so we're working on this book, and we'll have a lot more illustrations. And so we're really excited about the book. But what did we find? We found a couple of vertebrae. Obviously, you've seen one here on the table. We found the metatarsal bone. You saw that on the table. And we found a half of a tooth. Now, this tooth is only half of a tooth. In other words, there's just as much tooth sitting in the jaw, out of the jaw as this was. So the whole tooth is about that long. Now what's really cool about these teeth, and this is typical of T-Rex too, that's why they had trouble calling this a new genus, is that the teeth are serrated on both sides. And hopefully I'll show you a picture of this. But there's the metatarsal in the ground. And this yielded a lot of soft, beautiful soft cells. And I'm still getting cells out of it. I only carved one little piece out of it. Here it is right here. And you can see the cut marks here where I used a Dremel. And I didn't want to destroy the integrity of it. But that would be this bone right here. And look at how black these guys are. And that's what it looks like sitting in the sand. So he actually found two dinosaurs grappling together. And they call it dueling dinosaurs. They put it up for sale. They were hoping to get several million for it. And the university paleontologist came in and told the museums who were bidding on it, all the museums, if you bid on this, we will never do business with your museum again. And it completely quashed the sale. So this is what they do, folks. This is the rigged system. Oh, and here's the vertebra. Back up. Oh, I think I pushed something that's going, you want me to what? Anyway, there's the tooth in Clayton's hand. Come on, you didn't lock up, did you? These are big pictures, so it has to think about it sometimes. So here's what I mean. There's half the tooth, and you can see how broad it gets at the bottom, but it's serrated on both edges. Look at that. So this is like a steak knife with serrations on both sides. So imagine how that slices through flesh. And so I looked at it under the microscope. You see all the sand particles in there, and I didn't want to clean those out because I was afraid of breaking these, but here are the little divots, and you can see there's a sharp edge there and a sharp edge there, and this whole thing is sharp. So these things are really well designed to slice through flesh. So who looks more tired? But imagine a 15-foot tall, 20-foot long, 70-mile-an-hour serrated tooth dog coming after you to say, I'm glad you're home. What do you taste like? I just, I imagine what it was like, and I just can't imagine what it's going to be like, because all things are going to be restored, aren't they? All things are going to be restored, so we'll be with critters like these. Now, the osteocytes are a marvel of engineering because they're all intimately connected. Look at all these tiny little thread feet. Here's a cell, and they're all interconnected in all axes, remember? Because they're all talking to each other. And so this preservation is remarkable. We're talking about Philopodia that are on the order of 200, maybe 100 nanometers thin. Now you can't relate to that. You don't know what that means. So a human hair is 100 microns in width, okay? And a micron, which would be 1/100th the width of one of your hairs, you with me so far, is 1,000 nanometers. And so this is 200 nanometers. So think about the dimensions we're talking about there. How can this be there after 68 million years? I mean, there are processes in the cell called apoptosis, or apoptosis as they call it, programmed cell death. The cells have genetic machinery inside of them that tells them, you're dying, let's give up your components for the good of the all. And they deconstruct themselves in death. Isn't that amazing? Programmed cell death. There's also autolysis, auto breaking down. Just the physical nature of the proteins, the amino acids. You know, amino acids are like a long train. You've got trains out here. You see all these trains, long trains, right, with cars on them. Each car is an amino acid. And the position of the amino acid, you know, which one you have in which place, determines how the amino acid, how the protein, the train is going to fold on itself. Because each one of those amino acids has a charge, different charges, okay? Negative, positive, and they fold up. And that's what makes a protein. Now I know people get lost trying to think about this, and that's okay. It's really complicated. But I'll just say this. Protein folding is so technical that we're using thousands of Cray computers operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to understand it. Okay? That's how complex protein folding is. Protein folding is everything. If a protein folds wrong, you have a mutation, which is 99% deleterious or lethal, you're gone. Okay? Sickle cell anemia. Okay? It's a wrong folding in the protein. And so, mostly it's blacks that suffer from this, and they have a limited lifespan as a result. Now, evolutionists say, well, it's beneficial because you can't get malaria if you have sickle cell anemia. Wow, I'd rather have malaria, to be honest with you, than to live till 21 years of age. But we're talking about structures that are so tiny that would have broken down just on their own programmed cell death 67 million years ago. Okay, now Mary Schweitzer has come out and said, no, it's the iron. I don't have time tonight, right? Say no. Okay. I don't have time tonight, but go on my YouTube channel. I'm starting to put, I have 2 or 3 videos now, I think 4 videos on the iron preservation theory and why it's wrong. Okay, it's so wrong. It's so wrong. And I'm getting down into the molecules to discuss it. And look, I try to make it understandable, but watch it 10 times and then you'll...
And this is iron that's supposedly from hemoglobin, not from soil or rocks or both, or...
They're saying now that it's both. Before they were saying it's from the blood, from the hemoglobin. But you look at Mary's paper, and remember I told you that she had no materials and methods in her paper. Okay? Where was it? It was online. She gave you a URL that you could go to. Guess what? The URL is gone. I checked it yesterday. It's gone. You can't find her materials and methods anymore. Why? Because I tore that stuff apart and figured out where she cheated. I can't say it any more plainly. She cheated. Okay? So yeah, no. It's the hemoglobin. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Just look. She would have had. Okay. In her experiment, she used ostrich blood and chicken blood, and first thing she did is she collected the blood and she put in an anticoagulant. Why? You can't get iron out of coagulated clotted blood. Can't do it. So she used an anticoagulant. Then she started spinning things down in an ultracentrifuge. Why? She had to remove all the plasma. Why? Full of clotting factors. Okay? Get all that out of it. She had to remove all the platelets, all the white cells, until she was just left with RBCs, red blood cells. Then she had to split those open on ice with a solution. Then she had to spin it down again. She used centrifuges, and so one of my videos starts with, a centrifuge, if you've seen it. Is this really what happened at the Hell Creek Formation? And I show things spinning in a centrifuge. Of course not. Come on. Okay? Don't tell me I'm not a scientist if you're going to publish, and I won't see crap. Like that. Okay. Quickly. These are typical frill cells that I found. You can see all the beautiful filopodia. So this is frill. Average length 34, width 21. Filopodia about 10 microns long. These are Nanotyrannus. Look how different. Pitch black. And stubbier, right? a little shorter, a little less wide, a lot stubbier. These are vertebral cells from Nano. By the way, these pictures are through the light microscope, regular tabletop light microscope. This is through the scanning electron microscope. Now I have a new project that I call the Cells Project. This has never been done before. And I'm trying to collect thousands and thousands and thousands of these cells and wash them and wash them and wash them and wash them. And then I want to centrifuge them down into a pellet that I can then and look at them under the electron microscope. And I bet you donuts to dollars I'm going to see internal structure in these cells. These cells shouldn't be intact. They're membranes. These membranes would have busted 68 million years ago. Come on. I mean, this is ridiculous. I don't even know why these things are here. Okay? I don't know why they're over 250 years old. How old are these? 4,500? 5,000? I don't know. But I don't know why they're here. Iron didn't do it, and I'm showing that through my work. So again, vertebral cells. I have a movie, and I won't show you this because this is on the YouTube channel, but you're going to see this cell rotating around and being squished and moving, so it's soft. You can see it's soft. Takeaways. These are not fossilized. Well, they're not permineralized. These are soft. Okay? They respond to conventional processing. What do I mean by that? In order to get to these cells, you have to dissolve the bone away. If the bone was rock, it would not respond to the very weak acid that we use, like vinegar. It's akin to vinegar. It would not respond. Rock does not dissolve with vinegar. Okay? These are bones. These are bones. They're not rocks. So they're not permineralized. The cells are soft. They're unavailable to iron fixation. Look at the YouTube channel. Pretty soon, I've written a review of Fuzzrana's book. That's going to be published by Creation Ministry International soon. I made the prediction in 2013, in fact, I think I was the first, that soft tissues are the norm out there, and this is being proven over and over again. Work to do. We got to characterize this. The prevalence of it, the magnitude. We need to drop the phobia. We got to dedicate workers and resources. We have to do this. Our new book, be sure to find us for the latest. Don't hitchhike. Find us for the latest old stretchy. You won't be grouchy after you read about it. This is actually one of the characters that's going to be in the new Nanotyrannus book. So doesn't Deb do an excellent job in the illustration? There. So that's a Debbie drawing. Help me. Help me, help me. I have a GoFundMe website. If you can't write this down, just go to GoFundMe and search Armitage dinosaur cells or soft dinosaur cells. You can donate through there. You can donate to my church, which gives me 100% to the work, fully tax deductible if you'd rather do that. Wow.
Go back.
I have so many people to thank. There's Debra Liz for the logistics. It's thinking about going there.
There you
So GoFundMe.com/T5ZBHS.
Hold still. Hold it.
Yes.
Want to do the drawing?
Let me just finish and then we'll do it. I'm almost done.
What's the phone number?
That's a phone number to donate to the church if you have questions about that. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Brent, George, Pear, Earl, and Alan for funding. Thank you, Tucson, for such a wonderful picture. And thank you, everybody. Okay, drawing. Oh, you want me to do it? Haven't I worked in the yes? What do you do with it? We throw it away. Yep. So they know. They know.
That doesn't fit the narrative. Huh?
Without excuse.
The last three numbers are 8, 9.
So
That's pittance from what.
it is. But you know, we made the point. One of the arguments the evolutionists are making is, well, if you were so sure of your case, why didn't you go all the way? And why didn't you get millions of dollars? You can't placate these people. You know,
Anything you say will be used against you.
we played the flute and you did not dance. we played the dirge and you did not cry or whatever it is. So, yeah. No, I just got my retirement back, basically. Thank you so much.
And the guy who perjured himself isn't going to jail, right?
Okay, please do. I'd love to.
I mean, help yourself, yeah.